Good evening, everyone. I'm so grateful to be here with that fantastic introduction. I feel honoured to be in your presence. If it's your first time here at Browne Jacobson, your second time or third time, let me know. So who's here for the first time? Any first timers? Welcome. Any second timers? Browne Jacobson in the house? Anybody? Yeah, this is good, this is good, this is good. So now I get the great pleasure to welcome our esteemed colleagues on the panel. And so I'm going to go in a very strange order because you're in the order that's not in my notes, but that's fine. So I'd like to introduce to you Manny Botwe. He's a head teacher at Tytherington School, past president of the Association of School and College Leaders, which has over 25,000 members. He's originally from South London in the house. every time I say South London, I could be in the middle of nowhere and someone shouts, what? I'm thinking, all right, yeah, South London's in the house.
You can't take us anywhere.
No, but I love it. I think it brings the energy of South London in the house. Yeah. I know we're in Birmingham, the city centre, but if South London's here, we're so grateful to have you here. And he supports a club which is currently #1 in the Premier League, which leads me on
North
to...
London, actually, so sorry.
I didn't say a name.
Yeah.
Which leads me on to Matt Burton at the end, who's the Industry Director of Business and Professional Services at Barclays Corporate Banking, providing advice, guidance and supportive banking to those companies in the legal, accountancy and recruitment areas of business. The link to Manny is Barclays is one of the main sponsors of the Premier League. However, even more so, Matt is a youth coach in the FA, so even more so, that's a football link. And Matt went to Coventry University, which leads me to Uko. Uko Umotong is the director at Clarity Health Systems and co-founder of UB Healthcare. His impacts in business and healthcare is seeing NHS organisations achieve improved outcomes and tackle inequalities regarding patient care. He, like Matt, is also Coventry University alumni, which of course leads me to Marlene Henderson, partner at Browne Jacobson. Let me get some noise for that. I can see that Marlene's bought the fan club here.
I've paid them.
Okay, there's lots of solicitors in the room, so no, there's been no payments. But she's been a partner for over a decade, specifically leading in financial and professional risk with specialist expertise in defending multi-party claims against those in professional services. But personally, I think one of the best facts about Marlene is she's based in the Nottingham office, which is my home city. So let's get started in this panel tonight. The first question I have for you is you're all in different sectors and you're celebrated leaders in your own right. But I want to know from all of you, what is your personal motivation for celebrating Black History Month? So we'll go down the line. So I'll start with you, Uko.
Good evening, everyone. For me, Black History Month is a powerful reminder of the contribution and resilience that the community has brought to the UK. I wear several hats. So I'm also a member of the Black C-Suite Owners and Non-Execs in Birmingham, and we come together to try and, have more representation in boards and in leadership positions. I'm also a committee member of the Black Business Collective, which is part of the Birmingham Chambers of Commerce. And my focus there is on empowering Black businesses, Black-owned businesses in the Birmingham area to actually grow scale, utilising my experience of having navigated corporate to leading an organisation to scale and exit, and subsequently, starting my own business that is a fast-growing business. I also wear a different hat as well, where I mentor under Amos Bursary. So again, helping young talent through education to get access to places like Browne Jacobson and other places where we're trying to change the 1% and increase that. So for me, it's about ensuring that continuity of pipeline, building pipeline that grows and continues to evolve so that we can continue to see that 1% change to 10% and grow. So that, for me, Black History Month gives us an opportunity to actually shout about that and have opportunities like this, but it's a year-round effort, but that's what it means for me.
Thank you, Uko. And Manny, because you spoke about education as a head teacher in an outstanding school, what is your motivation for celebrating Black History Month in 2025?
We're not an outstanding school. We're a half-decent school. So,
Apologies.
so I have to. So I feel as though you've given us far more of an accolade.
But
You're
you're on the way.
Yeah. On my desk at school, there's a black and white picture which was taken in 1963, and it's taken at the port of Tema, which is in Ghana. And in that picture is my father and my mum, and that's a day before they arrived in the UK. And they set up home, and we grew up in a place called Thornton Heath in Croydon. And I think as I get older, there's a real recognition that we stand on the shoulders of giants. There were people that have had a vast contribution to the local community, to the country, to the community in which we live in. And I myself have 2 daughters, and I can remember growing up in the 80s. I remember being called down when Lenny Henry was on TV. That was just a huge thing. And now, when you look at popular media and, the music charts and whatever, that's that has changed, and that's as a result of the contribution that came before us. But, it's really important to remember that we live in very, very heated and divisive times. I went to a trustee meeting with, in a local area where, when I entered the area, the town was full of flags. And we live in times where everybody is seemingly angry about absolutely everything. So it's a reminder of the importance of community, the importance of inclusivity, the importance of making sure that everybody, sees and recognises the part that they have to play in this country. So, glad to be here and glad to sort of celebrate those stories from across the country and across the globe.
Thank you, Manny. Marlene, what about you? What does celebrating Black History Month in 2025 mean to you?
For 2025, I focus on the fact that is a celebratory theme. It calls for celebration on a societal level. It calls for celebration of Black creativity and the richness of our culture. So that's society. If we bring it home to Browne Jacobson, I think it calls for us, and I feel that I can celebrate the progress that Browne Jacobson has made in the legal sector on the DEI space. So I think that we can celebrate that. All of us in this room can do that. 2 words sort of jumped out from the theme for me: power and pride. And if we talk about power, for me, it's the power in the collective. It's the collective effort that is the power. No one person can change the dial. We all have to push together to change it. So for me, that's the power in it. Personally, Sharita just says power is influence. And I normally, I'm very reluctant to say I have power. I will say, though, without unreservedly, I will say I have responsibility. So growing up, I have responsibility to do well in school, and that drummed into me growing up. So I had that responsibility to use the tools that my parents gave me to make sure I did well in school. As an adult, I've got the responsibility to be a good mother. I've got the responsibility when I was in the army to be a good leader. Today, I've got the responsibility to be a good lawyer. But of course, none of those responsibilities are unique for race, right? Everybody's got responsibilities, so nothing is unique about that. The racial element for me comes when you think about the impact your failure might have on your race. And for impact, it's not just failure, it's how you fail. So that's the impact, that's the responsibility I think that we all need to embrace a little bit. So a little bit of history now. These youngsters in the room, right? You like the vibe and you like the celebration. Listen, a little bit of history. So, 1984, I was a girl in Jamaica going to high school. Ben Johnson was a sprinter who won the bronze in the 1984 Olympics, and he's a Canadian. When he won, he was Canadian. They've never won a medal. Them lot never won a medal, sprinters, right? Ben Johnson was Canadian when he won. got done for doping, he became Jamaican. And I just remember growing up, the whole island felt let down by Ben Johnson. He was Jamaican born. He emigrated to Canada when he was 10, but the whole island felt let down by Ben Johnson. And we had nothing to do with doping. And the Jamaican athletes felt let down by Ben Johnson. And everybody felt impacted by that. So it's that sort of responsibility I think we need to embrace as well. And those of us mentees in the room, you need to embrace that sort of responsibility because you impact other people. I'll leave it there for now. I'll come back to pride later.
Wow. Thank you for that, Marlene. I think you very well sum up the Jamaican motto of out of many, one people. So
Correct.
yes, Ben Johnson was Canadian when he won and he was Jamaican when he was found to be dopey. But on that point, with regards to what you do, Matt, in banking sector, you're also a great leader in the football arena too. So what does Black History Month standing firm in power and pride mean to you?
No, thank you, Tash. And yeah, how do I follow those sort of three answers? I was getting more and more nervous. Each one came down, but and actually, my answer actually it rings really true given what Uko and colleagues have said just then. Is that one of the things I really like about Black History Month? And actually, I must admit, I think I've put in a LinkedIn post last year. I do have a bit of a love-hate relationship with it. Definitely more love than hate. But it can be, I think, quite a difficult time as well for a lot of people. But certainly the thing I absolutely love about Black History Month is every single Black History Month that I can remember, I learn something. And even just sitting here learning different things, I must admit, I didn't even know that Ben Johnson was a Jamaican. So I've learned that. And Tash, when you were talking about your Pan-African name, and I was hearing some of those words, that's fantastic. And you wouldn't hear or learn necessarily things like that outside of a Black History Month setting. And one of the things that I love about learning those different things is actually sort of getting so many different perspectives that just the black people or the black population here in the UK are so diverse in our own rights. I've got a perspective of a sort of mixed race person, sort of father, and from a family from the Windrush generation. That's my experience. There's so many other sort of experiences that are fascinating as well. And one of the great things about Black History Month in terms of me being able to learn something is one of the things it means is that other people learn stuff too, and learn really important stuff. And the more you do learn, the more you do uncover. And Manny, you mentioned in terms of your parents from Ghana and the photo of them just before they came across. I've got similar photos of my grandparents as they were coming across the UK in the 60s. The more you learn is the more you realise just how ingrained and how important a part that black people play in the history of Britain and this country, from even in the past and in today, even though we're probably more visible today than we would have been previously. I remember previous Black History Months learning about the Bristol bus strike. And then actually when my grandmother was alive, I said, oh yeah, I remember that. I knew this person and that person and telling me all about that. And one of the great things, again, about education, about learning stuff and having other people learn stuff, is when we do live in divisive times, and when you can perhaps be threatened by a flag, feel a little bit triggered by a flag, and perhaps somebody comes up to me and says, oh yeah, well yeah, why is it that flag could be quite so divisive? And then you explain how that every time a black player played for England in the 80s would get booed. And that's one of the associations that people have with that England flag, and why it might be a little bit triggering for people with memories. It's just a great opportunity to learn. And I just absolutely love that about it. And I know that when I came here, I knew I was going to learn some new stuff. I have already, and I'm now going to learn a load more stuff over the course of the evening as well.
Thank you so much, Matt. Well, on the point of learning, Manny, I want to come to you and ask you about your leadership journey concerning ambition, because you've mentioned that quite a lot in terms of my research of how you've journeyed to becoming such an outstanding leader. But going back to your point, Marlene, about responsibility as well, how do you view your responsibility towards black students and other marginalised groups regarding having ambition, Manny?
That's a very good question. I mean, you know, every couple of years we have a whole school photo in school. So we're comprehensive of about 1,400 youngsters with about 150 staff. So you can imagine organising everybody into a picture is quite a feat. As a head teacher, one of the great privileges that you have as a head teacher is that you are the final person to join that picture. It's a very, very rare occasion that you're actually able to just look across, and in amongst those faces will be some youngsters who, you know, they come running and skipping into school, they'll go off to Oxford and Cambridge, they'll become rocket scientists, but there'll be some others in there that, quite frankly, they really struggle with school. For a variety of reasons. Maybe they struggle with reading and writing, maybe they've been bullied, whatever. And for me, that is always a reminder of the responsibility that you have for each and every child to ensure that you give them the best possible start to life. You know, I can remember at school the likes of Mr. Morris, Mr. Robson, Mrs. Furlong, who was just always on my case. And they made me believe that I could achieve more than I ever thought that I could achieve. And so for me, you know, it's really important that in every interaction with a young person that you know, it's important that you leave them feeling as though they have agency, that there's the potential for them to achieve. But also, you know, from a kind of hard point of view, there's an element of if you come to work in our school, I expect you to have a love and devotion of young people. Believe it or not, on occasion, there are some people who work in schools who don't appear to like young people. So, you know, we're very fortunate to have staff that are really passionate and champion the cause of young people, whoever they are, you know, because my responsibility is every youngster that walks through the school gates.
I really appreciate that, Manny. And Marlene, how does ambition drive what you've done in your career to date? And how has that influenced how you empower others? Because you spoke about responsibility, but what's your ambition done for your career to date?
So, I mean, ambition is my driver. So trying to do the best I can do. I always try to be the best me. So you might say that's competitive, and I am competitive, but I'm competitive with myself. So every single time I just try to do a little bit better and a little bit better. So that's, you could say, is my professional pride. It's my personal pride as well. So I don't like to make mistakes. I'm not a perfectionist, but I don't like to make mistakes. So I always try to do better, always. And that's what my parents drummed into us. You just be better. Every single time, be better. And the people I work with, I mean, they have a similar sort of outlook. So the young lawyers I work with, they try to be better. Doesn't matter what race they are, they try to be better. Do I influence them? I don't know. I will say though, I'm a leader from the front. I lead from the front, and I lead by example. So if by doing it and they see me, I've never asked someone junior to me to do something I am not prepared to do myself. So if they see me doing something and they think, you know what, that is working and that is how I should be, and they copy that, great. But I don't set out to influence people. I just try to be me, and if somebody picks something up from that, great.
Well, I really appreciate that, because you said so many things in your narrative to date, but you said about serving to lead, and the actual motto of the British Army is serve to lead.
Serve to lead, correct.
So I see so much of your teaching and training is coming out in your professional career now as a solicitor. And I'm mindful I'm in a law firm, so I understand in the UK we say solicitor, solicitor, advocate, barrister, paralegal. In America we say lawyers and attorneys, so please forgive me if I interchange, but you said it there, so I thought, well, Marnie said I can say it.
Yeah.
And so, Uko, how does ambition drive what you've done in your career today, and how has that influenced how you empower others?
For me, again, I always say when it comes to ambition, I am Nigerian.
Come on, my brother.
And we're schooled on it, especially from an academic perspective. So in terms of ambition, it's something that I think my parents, I'll give all the credit for, really focused and honed us in. Hence why I'm so passionate about doing the same for others. I do that because I fully, recognize and the inequalities that have been woven into society. And whilst we're here talking about Black History Month, you know, what's happening today and the opportunities that people that look like me have today isn't because of actions today or yesterday. They go way back. You know, everyone's seen the pictures of Windrush boat that landed in the UK in the 60s. You've seen how those gentlemen were dressed. Ties, suits, purpose, pride, power. Those guys came with a focus. They came, you know, to add value. They came with high ambitions. When you talk about ambitions, they came with a purpose. What happened for the 2 decades after they came? How were they treated? You know, how were they made to feel? You came with ambition, power, purpose, focus. And by the 80s, when people from Africa, like myself, my parents came to the UK in the 90s. I arrived in 97 as a 15-year-old. I had it good. I had it good. It doesn't matter what you think about inequalities. I had it good. My folks had it good. But there's generations of people whose parents came in the 60s, in the 70s, who would never have the chance and are being judged by that. And you know, people need to really think about that. Really, really think about that. I've got friends that I went to school with when I was 15, whose parents wouldn't have had the chances that my parents had because their parents weren't given the opportunity. So I think for me, ambition, I'm fortunate to have it, but I coach, mentor, support people from my community who, whether in business, whether in education, whether as a youth, just have nowhere near the privilege that I have, and many of us in this room and many people that I interact with have. And that for me is what kind of fuels it. And I think people sometimes overlook that. They overlook that. Because you might see a black young youth acting a certain way. Well, if his parents that came were treated differently, he'd probably be a lawyer sat in this room with us. And I think sometimes we need to reflect on that.
Uka, I really appreciate your contribution there because everyone's experience has been different
Very different.
This time. And so, Matt, I want you to bring it home on this one. So how does ambition drive what you've done in your career today, and how has that influenced how you empower others?
Yeah. So actually hearing that, I've sort of completely changed what I was going to say. The reason being, because I mentioned Windrush, Uka mentioned that about the clothes, and that is just such a profound thing, because I've got a picture of my granddad, and he's quite known for our family, and he still holds the title today, even though he's long dead, of the sharpest dressed Burton that's ever lived. And there's a picture of him. Actually, he arrived in the UK at this stage, and he's got the finest trilby hat you ever seen, double-breasted suit. The shoes,
yeah, man.
The shoes are like like the black and the white brogue.
Yeah.
Type shoes, and it's not just the suit. It's a black and white picture. It's the fit.
Yeah.
The fit of that suit is just absolutely incredible. And he came over in, I think, about 1964, in that suit, and then he went to work building the M32 motorway in Bristol. And he came over in that power, but actually there was no shame in that.
Yeah. No.
None whatsoever at all, because him and my grandmother had that ambition that actually we can see a better life for ourselves. And my father was born then as well. They left him and his brothers and sisters at the time still at school in Jamaica. They came across, got established in Bristol, bought a house, and then brought the family over through the 60s. And so when you think about ambition, I can't think about ambition and not think about that, which is just the fact that obviously you've got a huge amount of pride, huge amount of power in terms of being able to move yourself halfway around the world and establish yourself in a completely different, freezing cold country in the winter. And then have a job where actually that was the design of the program, was to come and fill the jobs, drive the buses, build the motorways, do all of those kind of things. Have a job that actually back in Jamaica you wouldn't have thought, I wouldn't have been doing this job, but to come and do it anyway. Because you knew you were building that platform that then you could bring your children over, who would then have a platform of education, who could get to that level of education, who then could have me, who could be established and then could go on and have the professional job that I've got. So that's a fire that I think drives me and a lot of other people in terms of it's an opportunity standing on the shoulders of giants. You can't screw this up because people before you did a hell of a lot more difficult things than you did. But back to perhaps an answer I would have given before. Again, there's no shame at all in just having ambition because you like the finer things in life.
Yeah.
And actually, I'm delighted if my kids are ambitious and want to go and have a job or look for something that's got a really good career and they can earn a lot of money. It's because they want a nice car. But I think that's part of what my grandparents did, is to go through that hardship so they could go and let their children, their great-grandchildren have all sorts of silly ambitions, in inverted commas, silly ambitions. So they could, perhaps we could have, and perhaps that's a good thing that I can give forward to my generation. I think when I was going from school into the world of work, I felt a lot of pressure because I thought, actually, I can't screw this up. I've got to get a sensible job. I've got to go and earn some money. I've got to be able to go and afford to buy a house and look after myself. Whereas actually, perhaps the gift is for my children that perhaps they don't have to be as serious about that. Perhaps if they think they can want to be a musician or a poet or an artist, I can say to them, yeah, go, give it 5 years, see how you get on. You've always got a home here. You don't need to be so worried about that. Perhaps that's the sort of the ambition, or realising my grandparents' ambition.
Thank you, Matt. So with regards to ambition, we're going to move into present day. So I see you all as role models in your own respective rights. Marlene, you're looking at me to say, what? I'm like, yes, we've rehearsed this bit. And so in terms of your respective sectors, we have business and healthcare, we have education, we have the legal sector and finance. What are your sectors doing regarding diversity and equity and inclusion initiatives? So we spoke about the past, you mentioned about the Windrush, grandparents, family, but what are you finding, Manny, in your sector of education? What are the diversity, equity, inclusion initiatives happening to push forward those in from different groups into different jobs or opportunities? What's happening?
Yeah, I mean, I think there was actually a sobering report that was released about 6 months ago from an organisation called the NFER, who, don't ask me the title of, what that stands for, but they look at recruitment and retention within the education sector. It was really sobering because, the dropout rates were really high from people who had embarked on teacher training, who had come from, ethnic minority backgrounds. I think in terms of black male secondary heads, I think it's about 50 in the whole country. So look, for me, there are lots of people who want to serve, not just in the classroom, but in the police force, in the army, who want to give service, who perhaps feel that the culture of the organisations don't enable them to fit in. So, I feel I have a responsibility in terms of being visible, network, in terms of the Association for School and College Leaders is a really empowering network, an EDI network that brings leaders from across the country. And it's, it's incredibly kind of energising for me to see people from all over the country who are out there doing fantastic work. More work does need to be done, however, because I feel as though, as I said, there are lots of people who would be willing to be part of the education system, either in the classroom or in other roles, but they've just got to feel as though, the culture and the environment and the atmosphere is something that talks to them. So I don't think we're unusual in terms of public sectors where that is an issue, but certainly I'm hopeful that in the future we can make a difference. We have to.
Thank you for that, Manny. Marlene, I'm going to come to you because we're in Browne Jacobson and I want to understand what's happening in the legal sector, but in particular, what's happening at Browne Jacobson regarding diversity, equity, inclusion, even the black lawyers in the firm. What's happening? Sorry, black solicitor advocates.
So, I mean, Browne Jacobson, as you know, one of our strap lines is not a strap line because we actually do it, so it's not for gimmick. We are at the forefront of society's biggest issue, and DEI is one of society's biggest issue. And so Browne Jacobson is doing a lot of work in that space. So, for example, our education team worked on a project about broadening the diversity of board of governors in schools. So you know that and they brought that to life, working with the National Board of Governors. So that was a great piece of work that they've done. But we've got two flagship programs really that are doing so much good. It's unbelievable. And I'll start with one now, and I'll reserve one for later. So I'll start with the FAIR program, and FAIR means fairer access into real experience. And that program is designed to improve social mobility. It's geared towards students who are from a low socioeconomic background. It gives them work experience, it gives them the support. FAIR has done, I think we've got something, a silly number like 37,000 candidates. Shelley will correct me if I'm wrong. I think 37,500 students have passed through the FAIR events programs, which is a phenomenal amount. 58% of that are ethnic minorities. And so you see the good that a program like FAIR brings, because some of these students otherwise will not get a foot into a law firm to get some experience on the clock. So for me, that's a real change. And hot off the press, Browne Jacobson is #1 on the social mobility index in the legal sector.
I don't know if we can top that now. So, Uko, because you're a polymath, you've been in so many different sectors before you've been this global leader in business. Tell me about diversity, equity, inclusion initiatives in business. What are you seeing? Because you're my last point before I have to look to the partner and say, can I have an extra 5 minutes, please? Because because I'm mindful of food, so I don't want to be... Is that okay?
I think, listening to the guys, I think I want to talk about the sector too, and I can talk about business generally. But in terms of business, my business, UB Healthcare, is focused on addressing health inequalities across the piece, not just race, but class. You know, rural communities suffer disproportionately, so we are focused on addressing health inequalities. The NHS has gone through a couple of reforms in the last few years. In 2022, there was a big shift, the creation of integrated care boards, and with 4 key aims, and one of which was in addressing and tackling health inequalities. It was a big focus. We had, for the first time, a director of health inequalities, Dr. Botwe, who did great work in that space. Fast forward 3 years later, there's another reform, a 10-year plan, a much bigger scale reform. And now we've got 3 key shifts, broader aims, which, without boring people, is to shift the NHS from analog to digital, to shift from treatment to preventative, to shift the NHS from care in hospitals to the community. Now that's all good, but in the plan, there's not much about addressing inequalities. There's a little bit, but not much. It seems like the focus has been removed. And then the next phase of that, you've got the plan, is setting out the organizations. They've condensed 42 statutory organizations to clusters of 26 organizations. And in the last few weeks, they've announced an all-white chief exec cohort. All white. Healthcare delivery. You know, you talk about, and not just a black thing, you know, communities disproportionately get affected by different things, and you need leadership that can address that. And don't get me wrong, those 26 are very capable people. That's not taking anything away from them. But representation matters, right? It matters. You know, it matters, and I made a note of this, it matters not just symbolically, but structurally. You know, if you're reforming a system, you have to be conscious of that. And, you know, I say symbolically because in Birmingham, you know, we've got the commission organisation here is Birmingham and Solihull Integrated Care Board. We have David Milburn, who's a fantastic chief exec, and we are lucky to have Daniela who's a black chair. But the point is, you've announced 26 all-white chief execs. And that's something that I think sometimes, you know, we, and the point about Black History Month is to champion that. The diversity in the NHS and in healthcare is stark. It's absolutely stark. Anyone that goes into any hospital, you know what the team looks like. You know what what it looks like. And I was actually talking to someone yesterday who has sickle cell, and he was talking about how he's had it all his life. I mean, sickle cell doesn't just appear. You have it from birth. And growing up, the challenges, his mom used to take him to hospital, and hospitals didn't really know much about sickle cell until, it happened to see a black nurse, and the black nurse, this chap has got, and then they'll get a good experience because someone happened to know. And then next time they go, it's like looking for the black person that actually might know what this is, and it's moved on, and we know there's issues in maternity care with regards to the black community, disproportionately. It's significant. And I think healthcare has a lot to do from a delivery perspective. When it comes to business, just very quickly on business, I'm involved in trying to support the community to actually understand what it means to grow and scale a business, to actually build a business that's just not just a sustenance, because, some of it is cultural. Yeah, I always say, if I told my mom I was about to raise £3 million from a business, my mom would probably caution me against it. Well, geez, why would you want to do that? But I need that feel to build my business. So I will, take that. And some of it's an education piece. Some of it is, a finance sector, like in math sector, actually helping us to build that confidence. Some of it's education. Some of it's network, helping people to access the network, actually understand those. And I think there isn't still enough of that. It's improved, there's progress, but I think there's a lot more that needs to be done to actually help our communities to get access. If you look at funding houses, they are disproportionately not represented. I mean, they just don't reflect society, and I think that there's a lot to be done in that space. Sorry.
And on that point, Nico, as we close this, because I can see the look of the partners giving me the eye. It's implied. But I want to ask about allyship as we close. What one tip, or you can give two if you want, would you give to the audience or us in general that could be a tip for black professionals and or for allies to advance their career in business or the career business entrepreneurship journeys right now, to stand firm, recognise their power and have pride in who they are this Black History Month? Or a tip for allies? Because you said there's 26 leaders who've been appointed to a big healthcare area. What can allies do to practically support others to stand firm and recognise their power and be proud of who they are this Black History Month and beyond? So, Manny, I see you're writing. So, Matt, I'm going to go to you because I feel like Manny's like, make notes. But Matt, what
to avoid.
What one tip? And I'm mindful of, we've got 30 seconds because I feel the heat of the partner heat saying, you're running out of time.
This is a really quick one. It'll be from the perspective if somebody is looking for an ally or a mentor or an advocate or a sponsor. Is ask the question, get out there and ask the question, but do your research, identify someone who you think might be able to help you and why, and then ask the question. And they might say no, but they might say yes.
All right then, Uko, 30 seconds because I feel the heat. Go on.
Sorry, I speak a lot about this. I think I encourage everyone to be curious. Curiosity leads to opportunities. Curiosity leads to actually understanding. And just be curious, be absolutely curious, go and find information. And in the age now, I can read 5 books in an afternoon because ChatGPT can do it for me. Summarize it and I'll know as much as I need to know about a book in seconds. Please be curious and try and understand. It's Black History Month. I'm telling people to go and just read up on history, the history that was never taught in school.
Manny, you were making notes, so I'm coming to you.
Yeah, I was going to, just echoing what Matt said, I think asking's really important. I think you will be surprised by just how generous people are with their time. So, taking the first step, being bold, I think can yield great results. From the perspective of, people like ourselves who are in a position, of power, I guess, or influence, reaching out, I think there is an obligation really to kind of, create networks, create spaces where people feel comfortable to, to network and talk. So that would be my advice.
And the reason I left you to last, Marlene, is because I know you're a partner, so I have a pass. So you can, the last tip.
So the last tip I would say for the Browne Jacobson buds in the room is obviously we've got our REACH program. And just quickly for you, Tash, REACH is for race, ethnicity and cultural heritage. That's what it stands for. And we've got a mentoring program. And obviously the mentees are mentored mainly from people that look like themselves. But they are then placed in the business for work experience, and they're not only supported by their mentors, they're supported by the wider firm, and all members of Browne Jacobson play a part in the success of that program. So the call to arms is, when you see the candidates, reach out to them. You've got something to offer, and offer it.
Thank you so much, Marlene. And on that point, I believe I still have a few minutes for Q&A. So if you do have a question, now's the time to get it ready. And I always say when people do Q&A, you start your questions with who, why, what, where, when, not a narrative and a case study. So if you have a question, you laugh, but someone starts with once upon a time, like, that's not a question. The question is, how can you, when can you? So has anybody got a question in the room today? I believe we've got quite a lot of the Browne Jacobson team here, but there's one person not from Browne Jacobson. I'm, I think, part of two of them. So anybody outside of Browne Jacobson got a question first? Let's ask our guests. Anyone? Yes, madam. So, Uko, to you, what factors do you see across the businesses that keeps them down, that causes them not to scale? Is that correct? Yeah. Thank you, Uko.
I think one of the big ones, and we had a team day yesterday, our team, and I covered this because it matters. This actually works whether you're in corporate, student, whatever, business. But for businesses, risk averseness is a limiter, and there's always a spectrum for most things. That's how I view things. So you have, people that wait till 100% to make a decision, and you also then have people that make a decision with no information, like mad people. The crash and burn. But you know what? Some of the most successful entrepreneurs are at that level. But the skill is to find where you are and push yourself back down towards that. I'm not nowhere near, I'm literally 50 or 60. But I want to get even more confident to make decisions. Because the longer you wait, the more opportunities you miss. But the skill is to be able to learn quickly. Some would say fail quickly. I say learn quickly. Because it's not just one decision. It's a series of. As soon as you go, take opportunity, it doesn't work, you learn, you utilize the learnings for the next time you make that quick decision. And procrastination and waiting for everything to be, I'm from a culture where people literally wait till 110. Avoid people like that, like literally, because your decision making will also be, absolutely. It's about, idea, and go, and if it doesn't work or you see that it's not, it's about being close enough to roll back, go again, but a different, so you have to trial. And that doesn't see, the whole people that I speak to that inspire me, that are business people, I see as mad people. They're crazy. They're literally crazy, but I'm sat there thinking, how can I get closer to that? Maybe not that, but how can I get closer to making that shift? That's my one thing.
Thank you, Uko. Do I have time for one more question? Is that possible? I've got time. I feel honoured. I feel we have a question at the back. Could you put in the middle too? At the back first and then the middle. Can you stand for me to announce your name? Thank you so much. So to go to you, Marlene, thank you, Jenna, for that question. What was the jump from you joining the army, then moving on to being a solicitor, a partner now? And why did you change? Was it because of your race being black or because of being a female? Can you just speak to that?
Yeah, so Uko talk and Manny spoke about ambition. So I just remember when we were growing up, by the time you were 6, you really had to commit to a career. Seriously. And my mom will sit us down and go, what do you want to be when you grow up? And you had to say something. So I started out, I think at 6 I wanted to be a pilot, then I started wearing glasses, so that was out. And then I won my first case was the missing mango, and my mom was, pointing the fingers. There are 8 of us 8 of us kids, and she was pointing the finger at all of us, and she was hell bent on who took the mango without asking, and it landed on my brother, and I defended him. Come on, and got him out of trouble, and that was my in. I'm gonna be a lawyer.
Yes.
So, I grew up wanting to be a lawyer. How did I end up in the army? Well, when I finished my A-levels in Jamaica, finished my A-levels, and I was set to go off to University of the West Indies to do law. And Hurricane Gilbert came that year, so if you look it up, you'll know my age. Hurricane Gilbert came that year, the law school went down, that was it. And my godmother rang my mom to find out how I did on my A-levels, and mom said she got into law but she can't go, and she's driving me crazy. And my godmother goes, she's always been fit and athletic, why don't you let her join the army? And I went, that's it. I am going. My mom goes, no, you're not. My dad said, yes, she is. And off I went. So when I came to Sandhurst, obviously I came to Sandhurst to do my officer's training, and I spent 7 years in the army. It was the most glorious years of my life. I would not change that now for any amount of money. That was the best thing I've done with my life, because as you could hear me today talking, what the army did for me, it set me on a path that I can't conduct myself any differently. Doesn't matter what situation I'm in, I still conduct myself the same way as if I'm a serving officer. I remember my daughter, when she was 3, I think I gave her some sort of order, and she saluted and go, yes, sir, mommy. So, you know, it's just that now is a part of me. So I didn't switch to become a lawyer. I wanted to become a lawyer. The army was a sideshow, but I would never have changed that at all in 100 years.
So how can we ensure that Black History Month isn't just 1 month out of the year, but it's repeated recurrently throughout the year? I'm going to go to you, Matt. Come on, it's your turn.
I just think it's sheer force of will. And I think if you one of the things we have been successful doing, as I mentioned in one of my answers earlier about education and people learning stuff. I think if through Black History Month you find so many nuggets of interesting things you want to look into more closely, I think then that naturally does take you into November and December and January, and then somebody says, oh, could I have that? Can you get me that book on a Marcus Garvey for Christmas, or looking at the Bristol bus strike? I'm going to look a bit more into that. And then I think it sustains itself. And so I think that is, again, one of the really fantastic things about Black History Month, that spark of interest that then sustains into later months and through the rest of the year. And then just when you need a boost again, it's October, and we get a whole load of new interesting things to look at.
Well, we're going to work our way down the line. Thank you, Matt. Marlene, what about you?
I think one of the, you started saying you have a love-hate relationship with Black History Month, and I had that too, because I'm not only Black in October, I'm Black every day, right? So what's all this 1 month nonsense? But I think the way you sustain it, as you say, is, and Uka, you talked about that as well, is the visibility, is the pipeline, is the support, is the mentoring, is all of that. And that is not done in 1 month, it's done for 12 months. So that's the way you sustain it. Of course, Black History Month, I think, is a good thing because it focuses on one theme and it brings us together. But every day of the week and every day we have to do something to support each other.
Definitely. Manny, what about you?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a recognition that, look, you know, we are part of Black history. You know, what we are doing and what we have done, you know, you get to a certain age where you're beginning to see documentaries that retell things that happened when you were young. But for me, an important thing is around drawing lessons from, you know, I think about my mum, and I think of her as just being a survivor, and increasingly what, you know, and I realise that as I get older, I'm maybe just becoming more grumpy. That may very well be a feature of just getting old. But I think this idea of nothing worth achieving comes easy. And that's what I think our parents taught us. And increasingly, I think that's really important. You know, that sense of, you know, discomfort, challenge, taking yourself outside of your comfort zone. I think they're really, really important, and they're things that, you know, we need to ensure that we instill in young people. Nothing's going to be given to you. You have to go out there and grab it, you know, and take every opportunity, you know, that comes your way. So for me, you know, I find myself increasingly taking lessons from, you know, Matt, you talked about your grandfather and the sharpness of their suit, and you talked about, you know, your parents coming from the 90s. They were hard workers, survivors, you know, wheeler dealers, you know, people that gave and contribute and continue to contribute to community. So I think that is the lesson that I draw in terms of sustaining Black History Month, not just during the month of October or November, December, but, you know, throughout your life, really.
Thank you, Manny. So, Uko, last point to you.
Thanks. I think for me, I love Black History Month because I think it's an opportunity to actually spotlight everything we're talking about. You know, because if we didn't have Black History Month, the sustaining wouldn't happen at all. You know, people would just, there would be no focus, there'd be no concentrated thought, learning, understanding of everything we've just discussed and a lot more. So I love Black History Month, but you're right, it's about the what next. You know, it's my opportunity to talk about some of the things I do in the other 11 months of the year, you know, the mentoring, the reaching out, the outreach, actually, and I think, you know, hopefully people know about Amos Bursary, maybe you don't, you go and inquire about it. And you might want to become a mentor because we look for mentors in corporate places and anywhere else so we can get young kids to see themselves, you know, in places that they may not have imagined themselves to be. And I think Black History Month is that opportunity to really spotlight, make a lot of noise, put a lot, like literally make a noise. And that noise hopefully resonates with a few people, and that's success. Because if we didn't have Black History Month, I guarantee the bits that will happen in a few weeks after, or this just wouldn't happen. So I love Black History Month.
Thank you, Uko. So now remains me to say thank you to you, Matt Burton. Thank you to you, Marlene Henderson. Thank you to you, Manny Botwe. And thank you to you, Uko Umotong, for everything that you've done today. I want to say a special thank you to Bridget Tatham, Demi Hughes, Megan Newman, the events team, the wider D&I team, also to Browne Jacobson's Reach Network, including Sarah Woodward for her fantastic balloon arch. And I want to say, yes. And I want to say a special thank you to all of Browne Jacobson for actually opening your doors to have this event, because standing firm in power and pride, the fact that you've put this on, it means a lot, because you have said as a law firm in the country, in this country, saying that actually we support and we want to be open about it. So thank you for having us here today.